So,
Yeah.
but if she doesn't produce,
Not the last one, the latest one.
there's no rule in there.
Because we're doing it in, we're doing it like with no name.
I'll find out.
Okay.
Well, your name tag is in the right place. Good evening. Tonight we want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about what is happening with our clerical staff at Elkhart High School as we move through the process. This is really one of the next steps. We have some other steps later on tonight related to bringing together all of the necessary folks to make Elkhart High School work. And our next step really is to start to look at support staff, specifically clerical staff, and a marvelous subcommittee consisting of Mary Anderson, Dr. Chapter, and Maggie Lozano have been looking at that whole issue of compensation, especially for our clerical staff, because really the responsibilities are all going to change significantly. As it has existed in the past, it had secretary at both high schools. Well, now have one high school. And next year, we'll be moving lots of folks around. We'll have clerical support for each one of the schools studies. In terms of secretaries, will be a secretary to the principal of that particular school of study. And a number of other changes that have taken place. We'll have one lead treasurer, but we also have the staff at the freshman division. So I thought it would be helpful to bring in the people who have been working so hard to put this together, to discuss with you the process that they've gone through. We do have the proposed changes to the clerical staff compensation plan on the agenda for your action tonight. To change the actual changes in terms of people taking on new assignments would not happen until after the end of this school term. So you'll also see, and there's actually a corrected copy of the policy that you'll see that Susan will distribute later this evening, that we'll be asking you to act on tonight if you're comfortable moving forward, or we could have two readings of this if you felt that was necessary. But I thought it would make sense to have these folks, Maggie in particular, explain the process that they've gone through. And I think that's why Biggs is up there on the screen so she can share the presentation with you.
I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, so I'm person and also virtual. Good evening, everybody. Well, I would have to say Mr. Thorne has made my presentation a lot easier because he pretty much has already shared most of what I was going to share with you. He did it in such an eloquent way. But I do have some additional information that I do want to provide as well in regards to the whole process that the subcommittee has taken. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you in just a moment so that you're able to see the presentation. He's looking at my screen. All right, so as Mr. Thorne said, tonight you will be a recommendation for revision for the
different than others. St. Joseph County Deputy Health Officer Dr. Mark Fox says it's important to remember the manner of transport. He says airplanes are relatively safe.
Donna, you need to mute yourself, please.
Eva's wanted to be able to join. She's available. Is she up there yet?
Yep.
Yeah, there she is.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
I just thought she had an email account, but she was waiting in line to get in.
Conda?
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right. So the changes that we are bringing tonight for your consideration are as a result of adjustments that are necessary in order to align the secretarial staff that's going to be needed for both Elkhart High School West and Elkhart High School East for the 2021-22 school year. To help illustrate the process, we put together a brief presentation to show what we're looking at. But before I get that started, I do want to highlight a couple of important items. The first will be that the presentation is only pertaining to the secretarial staff that is currently assigned to Elkhart High School East and Elkhart High School West. And then I also want to underscore that the secretarial staff that is being impacted by this adjustment, by no means will anyone be out of the position. All employees will be guaranteed assured a position through this process as well. go ahead and get started. The first slide that you see is just an overview of the whole process in itself. But as Mr. Thor mentioned, we do have a subcommittee that's comprised of members from both Elkhart High School West and Elkhart High School East, as well as other staff members from the administration office. The subcommittee came together to assess the petitions that are going to be necessary for the office staff at both locations. The subcommittee also put together and collaborated with new job descriptions as well as providing feedback for the revised job descriptions. Once those job descriptions were developed, we reviewed those job descriptions and we have a rubric that we utilize to be able to have a measuring tool to determine what classification that position will be given. So once we reviewed the job descriptions and provide a designation of the classification, we do have inter-rater reliability, so that not one person is the sole individual to determine what that classification will be. And the way that works is that we would go through the rubric, make the recommendation, and the other person does not know what the recommendation is. They go through the same process, and most of the time, I would say about 80 to 90% of the time, we land right in the same place. And whenever that discrepancies, we do talk them over to ensure that we're all understanding what the expectations are, so that the classifications that are given really do align with the essential duties and responsibilities. Now, in regards to the selection process, one has already been established. I will go over that shortly. And then once the selection process is concluded, the staff impacted by this adjustment will then be notified. So the next slide is simply to provide you with a current overview of our staff at the present time. And as Mr. Thor mentioned, right now we have 2 allotments of each position, and that's simply because we have one of each at each location. It also identifies the current classifications that are assigned to those positions, as well as the designated work hours and work days. We also took into account what the work hours and work days would be, so that it aligns with what the needs are. This next slide is going to show what our proposal is for the position as of July 1st. So what we are proposing are the following positions. One of the items that I want to bring to your attention, again, is to the number of allotments. You'll notice that the allotments have changed. At the present time, we are going to be recommending that we have 6 allotments for the School of Study Secretary. And the reason I want to bring that to your attention is to help provide some perspective as to what we're looking at in regards to the staffing need for Elkhart High School West, which will then be Elkhart High School, and the freshman division. So each School of Study will have 1 secretary. And if you think about it, each School of Study could be compared to a Fairfield. And then if we look at comparison in regards to the freshman division, one could say that it's comparable to one New Prairie High School. So that would be the staffing that we're looking at. Now, it's always easy if you're able to see the changes side by side. So this next screen shows you the comparison of what our current allotments are for the staff and what we are proposing for the following school year. You'll notice that there are some changes again to the number of positions allotted, as well as the work days, and in regards to the whether it's a school year or 12-month position. This next slide will talk about the selection process. Now, we do have a selection process that we plan on utilizing, which is one that is very similar to what we have done with both the teacher selection process, the counselor selection process, and even the process that was utilized for the students to select the School of Study. So all the staff will be provided with an opportunity to review the options for the positions. They will also be given a survey, and the survey that we plan on sending out is the following. It'll list all the positions, and they'll be able to rank them in their order of preference. Once they have had a chance to look over their options and submit their preferences, then we're going to go ahead and make the selections based on what they have provided as their choices. Now, should there be multiple staff that select the same position, we do have a system in place. So we have selected an interview committee. That interview committee will then call in those applicants or those secretaries who are interested in those positions, and we will go through the interview process, which we do have questions and a rubric that we will be utilizing. And also, in the event that there is a tie for the selection, we will be taking into account the employee seniority base with Alpha Community Schools. So those will be factors that we'll take into consideration where multiple staff members are opting for the same position. Now, the timeline that we have planned or proposed for this process is the following. Obviously, the first step would be to bring this to your attention for consideration. And if approved, we would like to move forward with notifying the secretaries, sending out the information in regards to what the process will be, provide them an option to review the survey and make their entries. Also, Mr. Anderson has committed to meet with their secretarial staff in person, give them an opportunity to ask any questions they may have, as well as going through the process itself. And then once the survey is out, we will give them a week or two to collect the responses. We will then collect the responses, make determinations, and then hopefully our goal is to be able to have results and give answers to our staff by spring break. Our secretarial staff has been quite anxious, awaiting for results, not knowing. The not knowing has been very hard for them, the anticipation. So hopefully, with this timeline, we'll be able to move the process along and keep the communication with our secretarial staff so that we can ease some of that anxiety that they're currently experiencing. Any questions in regards to the process or how we got here? Yes.
When you started the process, the creation of efficiencies that obviously took into consideration, was there an anticipation of a fewer staffing model? And then were you surprised when it didn't result in fewer staff, since I think you said everybody would have a position available?
At first we were. We did anticipate how the impact would be with the current staffing because the goal was not to create additional positions, but rather to really look at the positions that we have and ensure that the essential duties and responsibilities land where they need to be. We were a bit surprised to see that the positions that were actually needed align with the positions that we currently have. But what was very beneficial through this process was that the job descriptions that we had for our staff had not been updated in a while. So it provided us with an opportunity to really look into what each of those positions really entail and actualize those job descriptions so that we can better align with what the classification would be.
Yep. And one follow-up question. In anticipation of, the selection process, is there a process in play for people who say, you know what, thank you, but I'm not interested in that position, and what do you anticipate that the percentage would be?
Sure, absolutely. So in the event that our current staff decide that they will not like to move forward with any of the offers that we have presently, we do have other positions within the district that we would help navigate through the process and transitioning into. Now, should they not be interested? Now, we do have some that just based on attrition and some of the turnover that we've had, the positions have been vacated or staff have mentioned that they are considering retirement. So in that aspect, some have already taken into consideration. Our anticipation is that given the previous experience with the selection process, most people will give their first choice, first or second choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maggie, when it goes up to 10, moving to 11-month contracts, what does that change pay-wise? Like, are we like, adding? I mean, is like the salary cost going to go up?
So what changes dramatically would be that the positions that are 12-month positions are entitled to accrue vacation benefits.
Okay.
The compensation itself stays the same because it's based on the duties and responsibilities. So the scale is based on where we classify the position. The only difference would be that obviously those that, for instance, currently hold a 12-month position opt for an 11-month position, they would no longer be eligible to accrue vacation because in essence, the summer would be considered their vacation time. Now, on the flip side, those who are in an 11-month position who opt for a 12-month position will then be eligible to accrue vacation vacation benefits. So then there would be that added cost that it will offset with that person who is no longer the 12-month position. Does that make sense? So in essence, the salary itself, it's already a given because it's based on the classification.
Maggie, once you updated the positions in terms of their job descriptions, is it possible that some of the staff don't have those skill sets for the updated positions, and then how do you handle that? Do they get eliminated themselves, or how?
So we did a combination of both. We did a combination of we created new positions, and then we reevaluated the position descriptions of those positions that are already existing. For example, I'll flip my slide so you're able to see the positions that we're recommending. So for instance, the positions for the treasurer, the registrar, counseling, those are receptionists, those are positions that we currently hold. So the description was based on feedback from the administrators that oversee these positions. And in regards to whether or not the individual who's currently in that role, whether or not they're able to sustain the position and effectively perform those duties, that is addressed through the evaluation process. Our hope is to build employees up, so we use those as a tool to be able to have this conversation. In regards to the positions that we're proposing, for instance, because of the size of the staffing that we'll have, the administrative assistant to the executive principal is one that is new. We also combined the treasurer. We did a modification to what currently is the head secretary at the high school. Because of the size, at the department division, the head secretary there not only will be the same secretary, but also do some of those treasurer duties. And that has been accounted within the job description as well as the classification. So we have a combination of both, and we will ensure that the employees that are also aligning with their preferences, the selection committee also takes into account whether or not the evaluations have been there as well.
Thank you.
I have one slide.
That one?
No, maybe it's going the other way. Yeah, that one right there.
Okay.
Just one more.
So you're only one more than you have.
Yes.
Right, okay. And, is, Mr. Scott's okay? He's got enough room in his budget to pay for an extra person?
Doesn't Mr. Scott stop here, so he cannot say no.
Oh, that's how that works. I like it.
But yes, we have had this information by Mr. Scott.
Maggie, Stacy, did you have a question?
I do have two questions.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you talked about the employees who will be 11-month employees and their vacation will technically be during the summer, what happens if they need to take time off, like for doctor's appointments or something with their kids during the year?
Absolutely. So the staff that we're looking at for this adjustment are all existing staff. So their benefits will remain the same, such as sick time, personal business days, and those who have vacation, their vacation, of course. So should the staff member need time off for any of those reasons, they will still have those existing benefits. In the event that for any reason they have already exhausted their benefits, we always try to accommodate their schedule as best as possible. And if they've exhausted benefits, the worst scenario would be that they go unpaid, but we would definitely make the adjustment for them to take that time off.
Okay, and then my next question is, and you may have already said this and I missed it, all of the current staff you have now, they're all being offered positions, so nobody's is being like eliminated or not having somewhere to transition to. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then Maggie, just jumping over it, looking at the board packet, the Career Center office that you have written on there, that has nothing to do with this plan, right? That's a totally separate.
That is completely separate.
Okay,
Absolutely.
are we adding anything there, or did
Not
we
at
just
this
put that
point.
in? Okay,
You're looking at the revised one, correct?
huh?
Is that the revised?
Yes, yes.
No.
No,
If you want to look at the revised one, you have a green, oh, you don't have it yet. Sorry.
oh,
Because we're not on that subject.
okay, sorry.
What was
There is a revised policy that Susan will be given to you during the regular board meeting.
Okay,
That's what you're looking at is my wish list.
Okay. Oh, wishes, oh, I like that. Okay, good, good. Well, and why Kevin's not here, let's go for it.
That's right.
Right? Well, you know what?
We may be
Yeah.
asking Maggie where she was on Saturday.
Yeah, right. All right, great. Thanks, Maggie.
You're welcome. Any other questions that I can help?
I think we're good.
With that said, thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
You know, I made the right call by having Maggie come up and explain this all to you.
You
Mm-hmm.
laid it all out for me.
Yeah, well, we like looking at her better than you know.
You can get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I know.
That's all we have on this particular topic, so.
The only other thing for the work session will be questions regarding things in the packet or anything for the meeting.
Yeah, I had a few thoughts about the one policy that we talked about last week on some additional changes that, could possibly be made to that one. See if I can find it here. I'm sorry, what?
On 72.
Oh, my battery's dead in my laptop right there besides I got it printed out here somewhere.
This policy 2210.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question while I'm looking?
Shoot. Well, go ahead and talk about something else.
Why do we do the resolutions? Like, what is the point? Like, for the project financing resolution? Like,
Well, that's
That's another change that we can talk
oh,
about.
for the love of Pete. Well, at least I'm efficient.
More efficient.
I'm finding every-
Well, we'll talk about that, and then
yeah.
we can circle back with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you say circle back?
Good job. Jim.
No, we're not circling back anywhere. Like, we're moving forward.
All right. The resolution that was sent to you in the packet was actually the resolution that would be acted upon by the building corporation.
Okay.
You'll have, excuse me, now,
I
handing
know,
you,
no fault in the board.
that's right. Thank you. It was, and Mr. Rampola from Barnes and Thornburg will actually be here during the regular meeting to talk about this. But this is really the next stop, or the next step of the process in terms of the site improvements to the high school. So the parking lot in the back that Tony talked about several weeks ago, and the change to the traffic pattern out front in front of all three buildings here.
Okay.
And this is really just establishing the timeframe for the 1028 hearing on the bond issue and the amendments that would be necessary to the lease between us and the building corporation.
So the movements of resolution are just to make sure that we're keeping a timeline that if the public would come back to us, we're staying in a structured area and following like a legal format,
We
basically.
are following Indiana code in
Okay.
terms of what would you call it?
So we're not
Project.
changing anything, we're just staying
Absolutely not.
within the parameters of what we're promising to the public, basically.
Right. This is-
Okay,
This really flows back to the conversation Tony Janesi had with you
right,
almost 2 months ago about the need to do some site improvements
Yes.
to this project with the change of all 10, 11, and 12 students coming to this campus and the Career Center and ETI.
okay,
It really makes sense to move bus pick up and drop off to the area behind the buildings right now. And so that's part of the plan that, as you might recall, Tony presented to you, along with really kind of a complete change of the traffic pattern out front, parent drop off, pick up, and those types of things are all part of this proposal to do this. And this is just the next step of that process, which primarily is setting the opportunity for a public hearing for this on April the 13th.
okay. April the 13th, okay. Who's present for that? Us. Oh, yeah,
You.
I am. I'm here, meeting.
You'll be here.
Yes, I will be.
Um,
It does tell me I'm
Mr.
here.
Lucky, Mr. Scott will physically be here as well. We'll see.
I don't know, I'm starting to worry about all of you guys a little bit.
So that's
Okay.
the purpose of this particular resolution, and, apologies on behalf of the administration for the fact that we gave Susan the wrong resolution. I actually the business office gave me the wrong resolution, but
No name.
I would not want to mention that.
Well, you know what,
Anybody in particular did it.
It happens.
And of course, the biggest challenge is if you look at the two resolutions, other than the signature line, they're almost identical. Identical. Yeah, so it's just about this.
I don't know, but I'm here to tell you, I want to take this new course.
Oh, the mysteries of business.
Oh, I am super into this, yeah.
So,
This new course, I'm gonna go ahead and attend, we can do that, right?
Yeah.
Southern
you want to move on to discussion about 2210?
Yes.
So after some of the concerns that were raised at the last board meeting, I did try and make some revisions to, the policy that were my attempt to address, some of the concerns. I know that Mr. Weaver sent, those changes, and certainly that would be an opportunity if the board wanted to amend this policy, and as you know, my rule with policy is not finalized until the majority of the board says it's finalized.
Thank you for the improvements. I have some additional suggestions for the board to consider. And where it says cultures, I should say, strike the S at the end of that, and at the on the word communities, change that word to community. I would also recommend down in the yellow there, or where it says the prescribed sequence of courses, I would say with add with board approval to that somewhere. The next line down, where superintendent shall make progress reports quarterly to the board would be my recommendation. And the last paragraph, with prior board approval, innovating programs as are deemed by the board to be necessary for continuing growth. The superintendent shall report each one approved innovation to the board quarterly. Those are my suggested changes right there. But I do have more questions, though.
If I may, Mr. Reed, the comment I would have is the reason I use the word community is because we serve both the city of Elkhart and the town of Bristol.
Okay. And the reason why I did what I did was because it addresses the multiple different places that students might live, and students served by Elkhart Community Schools, which by default encompasses Bristol and Elkhart.
So you can't really get rid of the S on cultures, because that sounds like it's the culture of the community as opposed to the cultures of the communities. The cultures would be the we have several different kinds of cultures that have to be addressed, and they need to be looked at ahead of time before you can make up a curriculum that would serve all of those students.
Okay, so if you take out the word culture, the cultures of the students served. So every family may have a different culture out there, independent of whatever their community may or may not be. All right, so it's inclusive of that. It encompasses all of that. It's not ruling out anybody.
I think that that is something that has to be left in there. If we would like to, I mean, we can keep talking about it here, or we can also agree to have further discussion on this and table it for voting later. I think I have issue with several of your changes.
Instruction shall adhere to adopted curriculum. Okay, does that mean?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Okay.
The last line on the page, on page 72.
Is that longhand for saying that teachers shall adhere to adopted curriculum?
Yeah.
Okay.
It means that teachers are expected to teach the curriculum that has been adopted by the school district. Okay.
And so, going back to item I and stuff like that, the concepts of freedom, respect, equality, and individual rights and responsibilities. Okay. So now you're telling the teacher that they have to do the basic concepts of freedom, respect, equality, and individual rights. So who's the judge of whether a teacher is doing that or not?
I think you're misunderstanding what the intent of the policy is more to give direction to the curriculum committee as they're going through the process of selecting curriculum materials, rather than whether the teacher is teaching the concepts of equity, freedom, respect. Those are all, this is more direction to the curriculum committee as they're developing curriculum, as they're adopting curriculum material, than it is specific direction to the classroom teacher.
Can I interject an example? I know I don't usually speak in public works because it's a little bit of a break. But for example, I'm on the elementary math committee. One of the things we've done is we've screened textbooks, kids are going to see, like the children represented throughout the textbook. Do they all look the same, or different skin tones and potential handicaps and things evident, like in the illustrations and the examples of the problem? So just trying to make sure that our folks reflect all the students that might be sitting in our classroom rather than just one group. And that's how I read that policy.
And yet again, Mrs. Mullis, you and I are thinking exactly the like. So I just shared with the board an article that was in the March 2021 District Administration magazine that talked about steps to ensure that students see themselves in the instructional content. And so the first point there is there's this woman named Bishop who says that when students are using a resource, that content that we provide students and things particularly that we would have them read should both serve as a window and a mirror. So the window lets them see new experiences, new opportunities, things outside their normal functioning, but then it should also serve as a mirror, as Carrie's saying, to reflect their experience so that we see in the pictures and in the representations within the content and within the materials the range of experiences that kids have, the diversity within our district, and those kind of things. And then looking and making sure that they're reputable sources, that you rely on experts, that you have images that support diversity, which is kind of a echo of number one, and then be aware of language choices and things that happen. So if the curriculum committee is taking these kind of things into account, which they do, the rubrics that they're using to evaluate the materials, ask specifically about these kinds of things, then that helps ensure that they're taking into consideration freedom, respect, equality, rights, and responsibilities. All those elements are layered into those considerations. But we aren't specifically teaching those things specifically through the content, other than if they come up as a theme in something you're reading, or if you're talking about something in history that relates to those things. But we're not explicitly teaching equality as like a lesson per se, other than how we do when we manage our classrooms and the things that we do through our PRIDE rubric in instilling that as well.
This particular amendment to this thing here, H and I, what, who requested this?
The H and I is really language that comes from another policy that was proposed by Neola, but that I tried to incorporate into this policy, just in terms of guidance for us. For example, we wouldn't want to be having government or history courses say that there's no such thing as freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, would we? And so it's really more, again, goes back to the issue of guiding the curriculum committee as to what they're looking at, not guiding actual instruction. Instruction is based upon the curriculum materials that are selected, so this is really more guidance for the curriculum committee to be looking at as they evaluate whatever curriculum materials they're going to use.
When did you start working with Minola?
Neola, during Dr. Hayward's tenure here.
So recently, how recently did this just come up?
This was in their proposed revisions within the last 6 months.
Okay.
We get quarterly proposed revisions from Neola. It is a policy service that is utilized by nearly every school corporation in this county, as well as South Bend, Mishawaka, a number of other school districts. And really, of course, it's up to us as to whether or not we adopt any of this. The board decides to leave this policy alone, the policy will be left alone. Why is the board policy rather than administrative regulation? You all vote on whether or not these changes go into effect.
Okay, and Also, you just touched on it briefly about board policy and stuff like that. Doesn't the board policy also come out and say that the board is responsible for the curriculum of the school? Is something to that effect? Right. So we at this table are responsible for curriculum.
I wouldn't say we're in charge of it. We have experts that are in charge of it. We accept it or not.
No, I said we're responsible.
No, you said in charge of it.
Where does that come in place with people that are faith-based if they are bothered by something that's being taught in school?
I can't help but think about Dr. Seuss and what has been found offensive and what I considered a great series of books that I read to my children, and just at Christmas time gave a bunch of Dr. Seuss books to one grandchild. It's going to get more and more difficult if we don't try to address something. We could be told, like Dr. Seuss, he's not done a good job.
Well, for example, let's use Dr. Seuss as an example. Horton Hears a Who. The perfect example. Does Horton Hears a Who talk about respect? Person to person, no matter how small. So Horton Hears a Who would fit right in this policy because it talks about and preaches the concept of respect of others.
My only thought is, like, as we begin to speak, about making sure that we're, culturally, working to make sure that all feel comfortable and safe and, respected and like this, like a mirror to a mirror image. I was asking Steve, and I asked this because, we have a lot of faith-based people inside of our school system. And just because you're faith-based or you've given your life to Christ and you're a servant of His, I get concerned that where do the rights of how they feel is in the best interest of their children if it doesn't align with what is public opinion or thought process on what is equitable? How do they get respected still in the public school system? Because we've taken away the 10 Commandments, we've taken away the opportunity to pray, we've taken away the opportunity, yeah.
We've never taken away the opportunity to pray.
Mm-hmm.
No, out loud.
Okay, out loud.
As a matter of fact, if a student wants to pray out loud over their lunch, they can do it.
Right, okay, so they
If a
can.
student wants to pray during a moment of silence, you can't stop them.
But you can't have a prayer group
In
the school.
You can have a prayer group.
led by students, right?
We have
Okay.
fellowship of Christian athletes. We
Okay.
have teacher prayer groups that meet
Well,
during their
I'm just saying, yeah.
I think you have to be careful to say you cannot have prayer in school.
No, I was
You cannot have
asking a
religion in
question.
school.
I was just saying,
I know
like,
that, but
where,
I just wanna make sure
yeah,
we're
no.
careful with the
Well, what I'm
language.
saying though is like, just fitting into aligning with like how all people feel and, and knowing that they're respected in that way. Because I think that was a little bit of a concern with maybe the verbiage of the policy too, is
And
making
that's,
sure.
and for example, I would argue that by having language that talks about respect, it means that we need to have curriculum that respects everybody's religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
If we had curriculum that said, for example, that transubstantiation is bogus, that would not be respective of the Catholic belief.
Well, so
But my point being
but
that's why it's
yeah, but be
important.
careful like referencing to me as Catholic, because
Well,
I'm a Christian that celebrates in the Catholic Church. I like dig God, not just in the Catholic
I'm
Church.
just using an example of
Yeah.
what would not be appropriate
Right.
curriculum. If it said that a particular belief
Right.
was not an appropriate religious belief.
Right.
Even when we get down to issues such as intelligent design and discussions related to that, we are not forcing people to believe in intelligent design or evolution. We're teaching the concept. That doesn't preclude a teacher from talking about the other concepts what it would preclude the teacher from doing is expressing their opinion as to a particular concept was bogus or not bogus, or choosing not to teach a particular curriculum.
What the heck is
That's a school board member of a majority minority school district.
What is transcendental? What did you say?
Sorry, I didn't know what you were saying.
Substantiation.
What is that?
That is,
The process led by the body of red line.
Oh, I didn't realize it was called
The
that.
literal
Oh,
body.
somebody needs to go back to church school, this girl. Don't tell Father Bob or Father Jason.
we will not mention that.
Is this public? Great. Okay, sorry, Beba, go ahead.
The school board member of a majority minority district. I believe that this is the minimum of what needs to be said in this regard. And I believe that it needs to be said. I think it needs to be, carried forth. I don't think it is delegitimizing anybody else's beliefs, particularly in the way that this is stated. If you hold some sort of belief that somehow you think it's minimizing or not allowing to come forth, we have a duty to respect all. And I think the word respect in there helps a lot, make sure that that occurs. And I'm not going to allow this to be less than or different than. I would prefer not to. We can have more debate later. We can table it if we need more discussion. But this is minimum for me in terms of what I think I was elected to do with the type of district that we have.
I agree with Babette. I feel like this is necessary. I feel like the language is appropriate. And I feel like we've gotten down a rabbit hole. You're getting hung up on particular words and phrases, and you add a lot into it, which is not the intent of the verbiage or the policy itself. You can't add to what is being written based on maybe a personal perspective, or take it for what it is. The language I feel is okay, and I would support it.
As Mr. Thorne has said, this is our policy, and this group of 7 people here decides what that policy is or is not, okay? I put information out there to say, hey, I think we ought to change this up a little bit, all right? Because this doesn't, we can add or subtract whatever we like out there. And, but, for me, I would propose tabling this when we get to the regular meeting and working on it some more.
One thing I would like everybody to keep in mind is we are all 7 people who get to make the final decision, but we are 7 people representing everybody in our district, and our voices should be used as such. Our decisions should be based on everybody we represent and not just the 7 people who make the final decision.
I'd like to add, when I first read this, I read things with a legal slant to it, saying, this verbiage wasn't here before and it's needed. So I look at this, I was a little surprised and possibly even shocked that the curriculum development currently didn't actively promote such basic concepts of freedom, respect, equality, and individual rights, and that is that an accurate statement?
I don't think that's an accurate statement at all. I think that it's just making it clear that this board believes that, as Dr. Shepard and Dr. Higginson and all of the people who review curriculum, that they take these things into consideration.
It's very logical that they would.
Mm-hmm.
So
again, it's direction from the board to the curriculum committee that the items that they should be considering.
I'm glad historically they were, and if we need to have them, in writing, I agree with that. I think these are very important concepts to include in our curriculum.
And I'm trying to remember, Josh, but somewhere along the line in a grant or something I did sometime, it did ask, do you have a statement or what is your reflection about having equal access to curriculum? So having that language of item H is particularly helpful, just to be able to point to that directly as a policy piece. But sometime in my former life, I specifically know that there was a reference to that in something at some point. So specifically having that in there would be helpful from that perspective.
There are frequently from both publicly funded grants, federal grants, state grants, private grants, questions that relate to what your policy says about these kinds of things. So I think that's another thing that you want to take into consideration here is you don't want to, certainly if we need to rework the language, we need to rework the language. But to the same extent, I think we want to be careful that we don't all of a sudden shut off grant opportunities that we might miss out on if the language, if some form of the language is not there.
And understanding that H is very important to grants, and they specifically address, the equality access, equality challenging program. So I'm just surprised it wasn't included.
That's exactly what I thought when I first read it. I was like, didn't this already exist? I mean, I thought it was odd that it was even, well, then did you have a problem with the other aspects of like just adding the words quarterly to the other statements that were farther down?
Oh, you mean the,
I guess I'm trying to understand why do we need to review it quarterly? I think as the board, our job is to make sure that the experts who are doing this are making the right decisions to hold them accountable. Most of us are not curriculum experts, so I don't think this policy or we should be debating the merits of this. We are just for oversight. So let the experts do their job and pick the curriculum. This is just a guideline to make sure everything is inclusive. Our job is not to micromanage or to be the curriculum expert. This is not what this is about. We need to trust the people we have in place to make the right decisions, and our job is oversight and accountability. So I think we are focusing on the wrong stuff when we are having this discussion.
I agree. I don't think we need to put quarterly in there. I do believe that, Casey has it right, that we are here just as, we are here for oversight, and if this is a policy, then it doesn't need to be reviewed.
Yeah, the guidance is here.
Also, more discussion about this during the session, determine whether or not to amend it, whether or not to table it. I think all of those options are on the table. Physically speaking, for the board to consider. Are there any other policies, questions about? Question for clarification. We do have a secretarial classification policy on there. The language would allow for waiver of second reading. Do any of the board members have a concern about waiving second reading on the secretarial compensation policy?
And that would be the revised version.
And I don't need to pay attention to anything that has anything to do with the Career Center, right? That's later.
That's from the first one.
Is this one right here?
Yes.
Okay.
And the revised differs.
Yeah, it's on there again. What are we doing with the Career Center office?
Of food service
What's
employees.
that? Oh, that's effective June 14th. Are we changing
Those
anything?
are still under consideration, but at this point in time, we really want to focus just on,
Are we adding? What are you doing with the Career Center that's going to be effective?
that's a reclassification of that particular position. It's not a new position.
Okay, is that same person staying in that position? Okay, all right, great.
Now, we may be back at a later point in time because that person supervisor thinks that may be the wrong classification, but we do that all the time.
Okay, so we'll visit that later.
You may end up revisiting that classification at a later point.
You get clarification on whether we object to the second reading?
Not really.
I don't think we, does anyone have an objection to waiving second reading?
I don't have an
To the
No.
secretary? No, okay.
Thank you. That is all I have. And so we spend lots of time looking at a review policy.
Didn't? I didn't think so.
Right.
We are-
I'm much lighter, Bill. I have tickets. The tickets that you're getting are only for the first day. So then
But if it didn't
but
get
the instructions are.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Thank you.
rather than
That's what we should be doing.
Call this meeting to order.
I agree.
Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Scott, will you please lead us in the Elkhart Promise?
Every student is known by name, challenged, and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community, graduate career, college ready, and life ready.
If you would like to speak, at the end of the meeting, there are white sheets out there that you can fill out. Please, give it to Mrs. Ott. We'll need your, name, address, your position within the schools, and, you need to hold it to 3 minutes. We have our consent items.
Move approval?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would like to, celebrate the, gifts that we've received. Mr. Stephen Miller has donated a 2008 Ford Escape that is to be used for training purposes in the automotive technology classes. And at this time, I would like to remember a very special lady that worked there, with her husband that, we lost last time, she was in the notes, but we did not pause for her, and I would just like to take a moment to pause. I know her husband better. Please help me.
I'm sorry.
Don Hospital? No? Robin?
No.
Alright.
Very last paragraph.
Where am I saying that right?
Yeah, Hospital, yeah.
Yes, fine.
Dawn.
Please forgive me, I could not think of her first name, and it was Mrs. Hostetler, who was paraprofessional in that program. Died rather suddenly after becoming ill. Thank her for, thank you. So we have Keon and Jerry Swain have donated $500 to be used for the Elkhart High School Band and Choir Orchestra. Music apparel. Billings Funeral Home has donated $750 in support of the fundraising campaign for the same band, choir, and orchestra music apparel. Elkhart High School received $500 from Mulvaney Law Office for the Pennant Yearbook, which will be used to purchase supplies and other items to support the club. And with that, I thank them and all of you for being patient with me.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second.
Kelly Mullins,
Aye.
Babette Bowling. Aye. Troy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Stacy Davis,
Aye.
Rocky Henson.
Aye.
And now the fun begins.
the fun begins. Truer words have never been spoken when we're talking about
You know,
foreign
I was
policy.
thinking about all those 7 o'clock meetings that we had to go through our old book with Neola as the goal.
and all the fun that these folks missed.
Really did miss a marvelous.
It was great, 7 a.m. is great,
It is a marvelous time.
great for that.
Send a thank you note to all those board members, and maybe a special note to Cyber, and Mr. Weaver, that's many
I
hours.
didn't set,
show up.
I didn't set too many, I'll tell you that.
He didn't show up.
And obviously, I didn't read too many of the policies either that went with it, just so you know that. Just kidding, just kidding.
All right. Well, we do have a number of policies that were presented to you during the meeting on February 23rd. And we're keeping busy working with some other policies, and we'll probably continue to see policies. Some of this is cleanup, some of this is catch up. The first policy that we're bringing to you for further consideration is board policy 2210, which is the curriculum development policy. As I noted during the work session, the purpose of this policy is to provide direction to the administration and the selection of curricular resources that you provide to students in the district. There were some concerns raised at the board meeting on the 23rd, and I attempted to address those concerns. And you will see those changes highlighted in blue in your board packet. The administration is seeking approval of this policy this evening.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to, table this for, further review. Well, I need a second to that motion. No.
All you need is does require a second under Robert's rules.
Yeah, that's true.
Motion tabled.
Do we have a second? The second motion,
I'll second the motion so it can be discussed more.
okay. So now we have a second to the motion. Do we have any discussion on the second motion?
What is the further review for? Why would you want to further review this?
Stacy's question is, what do we need further review for?
Well, we discussed that in the, work session because, I personally feel that there are some changes that need to be made. And, feedback from other board members, would tend to agree with me, maybe not all of them, but some of them, that there are changes that could be made to improve that.
Is there any other discussion?
I assumed we would vote because I didn't think we had to have a unanimous vote on it.
That's right.
You're gonna vote on the table.
Yeah.
These are two separate.
Gotcha.
Issues, yeah.
Okay, all in favor of tabling, say aye.
No, we
No,
have.
no.
I forgot.
Because we're not all here. Kelly Mullins,
What?
are you in favor of tabling the motion?
For further discussion.
To be brought back at the next meeting, correct?
Well, to be brought back when a board member moves to remove it from the table.
I'm sorry?
You have to-
It has to pass unanimously.
You have to have a motion to remove it from the table, which certainly could happen at the next board meeting, but tabling it doesn't automatically put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, so we're still in discussion right now, right?
No, you're done with discussion. You're voting on whether or not you're tabling it.
Okay, I guess so I can't discuss anymore. I can't ask one more question.
But this is just on the table. So yes, you could if it passes.
I think we can go back and discuss the motion in and of itself. Can we, or not?
Whatever.
We have to vote first, on the table.
Right, okay, but then there's still an additional discussion period after that, because then we vote on.
Sure, there is,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, it depends upon how this motion falls, falls up, there's further discussion. Right.
But it can't come back then.
Well, we won't do anything more with it this evening unless you would vote to untable it this evening.
Right now, the vote is simply on table.
Okay.
If you're in favor of that.
Okay, aye.
Okay. Babette?
I'll say aye. So we can have more discussion, whatever we need.
Troy Scott?
Opposed?
Doug Weaver?
Aye.
Susan Diver?
Opposed?
Stacy Davis?
Opposed.
Rocky Hanson?
Aye.
On the back.
All right. Table. All right.
I was trying to be fair.
And, okay, moving on. The next policy that was presented to you on the 23rd was policy number 3160, ACS, which is the fitness for duty examination policy. Primarily, the change, as I noted on the 23rd, was clarifying the obligations that bus drivers have to submit to an annual.
Okay. One with the table.
Got it. I'm sorry.
Please
All
go
right.
forward.
It's on that page.
Gotta have a scorecard to watch the game. Great.
Especially,
Yeah. Okay, fitness for duty examination, as I noted, the primary change is clarifying the issue of the fact that bus drivers are required to undergo an annual physical examination, and the cost of that examination is borne by our community. Seeking your approval of this policy change this evening.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Dot?
Kelly Mullen?
Aye.
Babette Bowling?
Aye.
Troy Scott?
aye.
Doug Weaver?
Aye.
Sue Diver?
Aye.
Stacy Davis?
Aye.
Rocky Hanson?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is 3432, which is support staff absences.
34.
Did you know, you gotta have them. Right.
To follow the game.
Be careful with that move.
Follow again.
That's the thing.
Give me a ball to dribble, I'll be okay. Give me a fidget.
I'm so glad that these are all publicly broadcast. All right, which is wages and benefits for support staff. This policy really just outlines procedures that have historically been used by the district to recommend salary increases and increases to compensation for support staff, and really, I guess I would say codifies what has been our long-standing process. Seek approval.
Do you have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Mrs. Dot?
Kelly Mullen?
Aye.
Babette Bowling?
Aye.
Troy Scott?
Aye.
Doug Weaver?
Aye.
Sue Diver?
Aye.
Stacy Davis?
Aye.
Rocky Enfield?
Aye.
Okay, now, the next policy is 3432, which is support staff absence policy. This is actually a long-standing policy of the school corporation. As we made the transition to Neola, a few policies were dropped during the transition process. This policy, however, has been continued to be published in our employee handbook for many, many years, but I would like to get it back into board policy and seek approval of that change, that addition to policy this evening.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Dot?
Kelly Mullen?
Aye.
Babette Bowling?
Aye.
Troy Scott?
Aye.
Doug Weaver?
Aye.
Sue Diver?
Aye.
Stacy Davis?
Aye.
Rocky Enfield?
Aye.
Right. Thank you. Next policy, again, this is a return to our policy manual, dropped during the Neola transition. And this policy deals with really setting forth in board policy, parent rights and responsibilities for custodial and non-custodial parents. The majority of this policy is covered by Indiana law, but it does also address some issues related to who a student can be released to, and we would like to have this policy back on our policy book for employees, so we're seeking approval of this policy this week.
Second.
Any board discussion?
I may have failed to see this. Having a son that deals with not getting information that a teacher puts out, because he's not the custodial parent, and which one of those would that be covered? I mean, like, while I was with him, he received a phone call because he had pleaded with the teacher. Obviously, it's not a policy there in California either, but
It is, here's our policy regarding that, and I think our public policy speaks specifically to that. Both parents have the right to view child student records, so both parents have the right to have access to Power School. They have a right to receive school progress reports, which of course now are contained in Power School, so it's much easier to deal with that particular, to visit with the child at school and to participate in parent-teacher conferences. Now, one thing that we have done over the years, this is not the first time that I've heard a story like that, and we've had non-custodial parents who have had challenges, is to have that non-custodial parent work with the school. So, for example, probably less of an issue today, because many of our student newsletters and all those types of things are emailed or sent through iPad or Seesaw or any of those types of things. We would encourage parents to provide us with a self-addressed envelope so we could include in that school newsletters, those types of things. So that's something that we've done for many years when we're doing non-custodial parents. But really the essence of this policy is to put the non-custodial parent and the custodial parent on mostly equal footing. There are still circumstances where the custodial parent would have greater rights. For example, custodial parent can determine who has the right to take up their child from school. So those types of things sometimes come into play. And this gives the school that authority to be able to turn to this policy and say that's the rule that a school corporation expects. And this really mirrors what had been in place, quite honestly, since long before I came to work in the school corporation.
a lot of green here, so I wanted to.
Yeah.
That's because it's all new again.
It's new to our current policy, but it is pre-existing school board policy that preceded Neola.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's in there. Thank you.
So who is to enforce who gets to pick the child up? I mean, how is the school to know who each of the parties are in these situations?
That's a great question, but we ask parents to provide us with current copies of the divorce decree or the paternity decree when that happens. Now, when they don't comply with us, then I go on to the court website and get copies of those orders myself so that I can provide those to the school. But I'll tell you that for the most part, parents are pretty good at providing those. Now, I will also tell you that from time to time, a parent will provide us with an earlier decree that might favor them and ignore the fact that there is a later decree or later decision of the court that might favor the other parent. And then again, we'll work with the courts to make sure we have the current court decree in place.
So what about situations where we have a child out of wedlock and there was never a marriage or divorce? And then you have two opposing parties in it that both want to, you know, dictate how the child is to be educated, raised,
Well,
et cetera,
unless
et cetera.
one of them isn't paying to help support the child, they don't have anybody.
After the court order, the mother would have control over the situation, but frequently, because of work to collect child support through the prosecutor's office, there is also an order establishing those rights through a paternity action.
Okay, and what happens if the school releases a child to the wrong party?
Well, our schools work very hard to avoid doing that. I can't say that it could never happen, but they are, I guess I would describe them as being almost overly cautious. Our school secretaries, our school administrators are very protective of children. And when we have a dispute where we really think we need assistance, we will call upon Amy Center, or we will call upon law enforcement to assist in circumstances such as that. But we will always rely on the court decree and turn to the court for assistance or turn to law enforcement if necessary.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mrs. Ott?
Kelly Muller.
Aye.
Babette Bowen. Aye. Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Sue Diver. Aye. Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Thank you. Two more policies that you need to take action on this evening. The next one are proposed revisions to the miscellaneous employee compensation plan. As I noted, we are asking for waiver second reading. A couple of different things are happening with this particular compensation plan. One would be a request to create a new position in the food service department, and that would be the food service support specialist. As you know, we have been working with Focus to try and look at options or look at strategies to address what has been an ongoing structural deficit for food service. One of the things that we've discovered that we believe will help to address that structural deficit is better inventory management. And so as part of that process, we are moving towards a completely different platform to manage inventory and really manage almost the entire food service operation in terms of point of sale, in terms of menu, et cetera, a significant upgrade in terms of that process. We need somebody who, one, understands that and can manage that, but can also train all of our food service employees. So that would be the food service support specialist who would be doing that. Now, of course, our plan is the savings that we're going to gain from inventory management and many of the other changes that Mrs. Meltzer and Mr. Genesi and their team have been working on to address that deficit will continue to remedy that ongoing deficit. Were it not for a very weird year in terms of food service, I think we would be making much more substantial progress than we haven't been. But even given the strangeness of the year, they've been working hard to reduce that deficit. I think this will also help in terms of doing that. The other changes are really just changes in title. As Mrs. Meltzer has gone through the restructuring process, she has realigned responsibilities for the food service training specialist and the quality assurance coordinator. Some of those responsibilities have transferred to the food service support specialist, and the food service director for secondary and elementary really are focused on making sure that both of those programs receive the necessary support required for that. So other than title changes, the really most significant change is the addition of the food service support specialist position. Seeking your approval and asking you to waive second reading on that.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Because Mrs. Meltzer's here, I would. And, for the food safe test, is it just one person that has to have that, that's working with a team of people, or do you require it of all your staff? I'm sorry, Pam, I can't hear you. I know how much you love coming up here.
I do like to have her come up here and support my work.
So we serve safe training, all of our staff. We
Do they test then?
They do a test, but they're not certified.
Certified.
We certify all our managers, a cook, and each of the secretaries, and my whole staff in the office is safe certified. So there's at least 1 to 3 people at the building that are safe certified.
That's very good. Wanted clarification on it. Thank you. That is really, something, having grown up in the restaurant industry and having a sister own 2 restaurants. She won't hire a cook that's not willing to take the test. She doesn't care, she's got 5 cooks on that night. They all have to have that test, so it's nice to know. So if anybody's going down Route 66, you wanna stop at Wheezy's.
Food safe certified.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, all the cooks.
we need to sign up, for that, that says that.
Right.
Who's
Sounds like a road
certified?
trip.
Road trip.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Ott?
Kelly Mullin,
Aye.
Babette Bowling,
Aye.
Troy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Stacy Davis,
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Thank you very much. One last item for you to vote on tonight, and then we have no more policy that we're presenting for consideration tonight. This is, 3422.06F, which is the Secretarial Business Compensation Plan. And as you recall, Maggie Lozano did a spectacular job of making a presentation to the board this evening as to the need for changes to this classification. And again, these all relate to reallocation of support staff, specifically clerical staff, at Elkhart High School in the Preston Division. Seeking your approval, asking the waiver at the second reading.
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Now again, Mr. Thorne, this does not take effect until after this school year.
That is correct. But we
Okay.
will post the positions over the next several weeks and hopefully fill them by right before spring break, but they will not assume those new responsibilities until after the end of the school year or assume the additional pay range.
Okay.
So the policy, in terms of the changes in pay ranges, actually takes effect on the first pay following the end of the school year.
Okay, very good.
Kelly Mullen,
Aye.
Babette Bowling,
Aye.
Troy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Stacy Davis,
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Thank you all very much for your patience as we go through all these policies this evening. Next,
We love it when you're on vacation.
So does my wife. The next policy for, that we're bringing to you for initial consideration, is support staff recruitment and selection. It does two things. One, it officially establishes the classifications for permanent substitute teachers and licensed practical nurses, but secondarily outlines in policy the procedures that we employ through the HR department, in the hiring of support staff, and those procedures. And we'll bring this to you for initial consideration this evening.
Approval?
With this.
Oh, initial, I'm sorry.
It's all right. You just got
I didn't
got in the
see it.
habit, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't have the ball.
Is there any questions on that? Please let me know. Otherwise, I will sit down and hear from the shepherd for the period of time before you have to just need one more.
Our document says you have to do this.
I know, I got carried away with the dust thing.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
One of the effects of the rescheduling of the school year because of COVID was the creation of an additional section at the middle school level. So instead of having 7 sections, students had 8 sections spread over a semester, 4 and 4 each semester. And so with the idea and the notion that having an extra section of classes, it would be in the best interest for the middle school to offer additional elective courses, and that began the thought and process of the proposal for this new course, which is Cracking History's Cold Cases, which is going to be a fun, exploratory journey down American history, looking at some of the famous cases that have never really been resolved. Students will have the opportunity to examine copies of primary source documents, which is the study of history at its best, as you know. And so this will be a 9-week course that 8th grade students will have the ability to sign up for as an elective. So it is an elective credit. It's not part of the required social studies credits that they take. And we look forward to our middle school students doing something really exciting along these lines. Maybe we'll find some new students in our community because of this. So we just wanted to share this with you this evening and answer any questions that you may have.
And you don't vote on this, I did get carried away.
I want to vote on this.
I did too. This
wanted
is
to
something I like.
If you wanna take the course, you can go over to Westside Middle School and sign up and maybe.
I would take this
course.
We have a question in the back.
I have a question for you, as my son will probably be one of the students taking this course over at Westside and talking with the school counselor throughout the year. This is, 2 weeks ago, this wasn't even an option, according to her. So it seems like it was put together quite quickly, which is fine, it's a very interesting class. Is there a syllabus already or exactly what is going to be taught?
Teachers, they should have one that's put together, yes.
And it will be ready within a week?
They should be able to have it.
Confident it's,
I'm confident.
and it's just at Westside?
Yes, it's only gonna be offered at Westside.
So this is starting next week.
The starting of the fourth quarter, which is.
Right, the 15th.
Which is next week.
Well, we better get going then.
So is this gonna be an ongoing thing, or is this just a
It
one-time?
looks like it could be adopted.
Well,
Look in this year.
with it as a new course, if they wish to offer it in the future, they won't be able to do that because it's an approved course if they went through the process, but I don't know if they will offer it in the future. Because if we're back to normal, we'll be back to the regular seven period schedule again, so there may not be a need or room for it.
So, but this is, there's no textbook for this. This is just something the teachers are putting together and.
They are using, primary source documents that they will get online and, other places to use as, the resources for this course, yes. There's not a printed text that they have to use.
It's not very often I want to go back to school, but
I
it
know.
sounds great.
I know.
like this.
So moved.
No.
Nope, we're not doing anything.
We're not voting on, oh,
No, no.
Wrong on your working copy, you don't vote on
It
it.
just proves that Mrs. Ott is indeed human.
oh, okay.
Well,
She
you know,
made an
the
error.
years going by, you did approve this.
Oh.
Sometimes I forget. That's it.
If there are no other questions, I am happy to turn it back over to my good colleague, Mr. Cohen.
AKA Kevin.
Now he's Kevin Scott.
Yeah, I'm here, Kevin Scott, as you may know, is on the injured reserve list. Mr. Scott did send you a lovely memo outlining this. It's really the capstone project, as we move to the one high school. And in order to continue to move forward with that project, we would ask you to approve this resolution. The project, as I noted earlier tonight, would include site and vehicular circulation improvements, a new bus parking area, that would accommodate all of the buses that will be coming to the high school. Eventually, we hope to include an above-ground storage facility, which will make Mr. Genesi's sleep at night much better.
That was fuel?
Fuel storage facility. Underground tanks make all of us very nervous. And improvements to the transportation department building so that our employees don't have to continue to go to use the restroom. The next part of this process would be to initiate that process by approval of this resolution. It will also establish the requirement for a public hearing to take place on April the 13th during our regularly scheduled board meeting, where the public will have an opportunity to comment on this resolution. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but if you want to have the expert answer questions, Randy Roscoe from Barnes and Thornburg is also joining us this evening to answer any of those more little detailed school financing questions
Move approval.
that you may have.
Second.
I guess that answers that. Wow.
Randy would be happy to do Skipper as well.
Hold on. We have a motion and a second. Now, do we have any discussion or questions of our esteemed guests?
For hours about the efficacy of bonding and.
Or you can be seated.
He had a 3-hour ride. Stand up and talk to him.
Yeah, but he might charge us for those 3 hours.
Randy comes to the South Bend office, very should not be a 3-hour ride. There will be, I'll be taking a look at the bill.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and apparently no discussion.
Although, thank you. Yeah, there's a discussion.
Mrs. Ott?
Kelly Polly.
Aye.
Cabot Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Sue Diver.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Anderson.
Aye.
I thank you, Mr. Scott, thank you. I know the staff at Oak Park High School will thank you. And Tony will absolutely thank you, because there's one more project to oversee. He was getting bored.
Perfect. When that calendar
Well.
says AB on the 21st,
Ms. Muller?
that means all the kids are in school.
Hello, Terry Mullet, Elkhart Teachers Association. I'm really here speaking a point of personal privilege. It has absolutely nothing to do with these days. Just me wanting to talk to you. As many of you know, I was very sick with COVID last month, and I want to thank you. Many of you reached out to me sitting at this table and expressed good well wishes, and we miss you and all sorts of stuff. I did view some of your meetings through the power of YouTube. It's not quite as not quite the same, but it is more comfortable with my own refreshments and my slippers on. But it's better to be here with you in person. I also wanted to add, and I'll let you know that, I hope I don't steal your thunder, you're probably going to mention this, but the vaccine clinic today at Concord High School, I was there this afternoon. I wanted to report that I had my shot. It was absolutely pain-free. I stopped for ice cream afterward, got myself a sundae, courtesy of Vanilla Bean. They have Taco Tuesday, waffles. So I got a big ice cream to reward myself for being brave. So that was going awesome. There was no wait, maybe a minute or two. People were happy, jolly, lots of people participating. That was terrific. And then last but not least, you know I'm a blessing and a curse. I told you that before. And I never had a chance to make my New Year's resolution. And so I've come up with the perfect one. My resolution that I'm starting in March is every single school board meeting, I'm going to be coming to the podium. I don't know what the topic will be. Each time will be a surprise, but I wanted you to have it in your head. Every second and fourth Tuesday, you can think, now, tonight, what's going on at the school board meeting? And you'll know for sure Carrie will be at the podium sharing some important information or random bit of thought. So I just wanted to put that out there. Once again, thank you for thinking of me last month when I was gone. I missed everyone. I'm glad to be back. And thanks again also for that resolution that was in support of vaccines. Someone mentioned that when Dr. Pelham and I went down to Indianapolis last week, that's when the vaccines opened up. And we learned that Meyer could do the clinic. And so some of the teachers thought that we had done that down in Indianapolis.
Good job.
And they were like, wow, you guys like went to Indianapolis and 3 hours later we have shots. So it wasn't really us, but nonetheless, it's good. So anyway, thank you. It's good to see you all. And I will now leave the podium, but I'll see you in 2 weeks. If there's a certain topic you want me to talk about, I do take response.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
I like the surprise aspect.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for with her, Troy.
Do we have anybody out in Wonderland that wants to talk to us? Okay.
Wonderland,
Dr. T.
WandaVision.
To kind of piggyback off of what Carrie said, I wanted to say thank you to the staff in this office that managed the rollout of that, because I got a phone call while I'm in the State House waiting to meet with our first legislator on Wednesday, when they're like, hey, Meyer's ready to roll this out. So to Doug and everybody here who helped get that coordinated in my absence, I appreciate that. Secondly, I just want to say thank you to all the staff who got ready for our K through 6 students to report yesterday. I know people put in a lot of time to get that ready, and people are working through the logistics. I checked in with Pam, and we're doing okay on food service. So we're back to experiencing a first day, first week kind of thing, but I know everybody's working hard on that. We'll get secondary students back on Monday. Continue to be concerned regarding the direction that legislation is taking this turn. Our conversations Wednesday were conversations. So it is concerning that there seems to be, and in conversations I had today, there seemed to be a snowball rolling downhill regarding things, and I'm not sure what impact we're gonna have to stop it, much less divert it. So, we just have to keep making our voices heard, and people in the State House need to hear from people other than superintendents and school board associations and superintendents associations. They have got to hear from the people in the public that diverting funds to choice scholarships and to education savings accounts diverts funds from 90% of the Hoosier students who need those dollars. And they won't listen to me. They won't listen to a school board member. They won't listen to the School Boards Association or the Superintendent's Association or even to the Teachers Association. They have to hear from business leaders, community people, and families who are going to see the impact of those changes. So I'm continuing to advocate that, and we're getting information out regarding that.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I have.
So I would like to start the board comment by complimenting the Elkhart Lions boys basketball team on their outstanding run through the sectional in Elkhart. I had the pleasure of attending all 3 games, and I've attended quite a few of the games, and I will tell you that those 3 games showed that our team is playing their finest basketball at just the right time. They were great games to watch, and any time that we can beat Concord, Warsaw, and Penn all in a matter of 4 or 5 days, it's a great week for Elkhart High School. In addition, I would like to compliment the Elkhart girls bowling team for their sectional championship that they won on Saturday. We're having a great time in sports in Elkhart and academics and all the rest of the extracurricular activities. So a great shout out to Coach Sears and all the rest of the coaches out there for getting our student athletes ready for these competitions. Is there anything else from the board?
And we have a gymnast going to state.
Yes, Mia Epshartia.
Yeah, Mia Epshartia is going to state, and then excited for the cheerleaders for their competition.
Yep, a lot of excitement.
I'd like to add on to Rafi's congratulations to Coach Sears and the boys basketball team, and we will be playing this Saturday against Gary West in the 2nd game. If you're wanting to go, Elkhart has around 1,000 tickets, and they went on sale, I think, today. I think you can get them through the box office at Elkhart.
Either one.
Either one, okay, either one. They're $8 for a single session. And the first game starts at 1:30 Elkhart time on Saturday. And then if we win that game, then there'll be an hour and a half ahead of the next game that starts at 8 p.m. There'll be, you can buy more tickets. So I just wanted to make sure that those boys, young men, actually really thrive on fan support and really love their fans, and that was really fun to see at the end of the game. They were as much interested as getting over there and getting their sectional picture with all of their fans than they were anything else. It was really cool. And it's a great start for Elkhart. And it's, I've got my Lion scarf on tonight. We're going to go for it. So make sure you get your sectional tickets and get there. They love and thrive on fan support. Again, just reiterating what Dr. Tolheimer said. He and Carrie both put a beautiful letter together to our staff in the learning brief. And there's a clip that says here to learn about that. And I just really recommend that everybody that's learning from Elkhart Community Schools look at that learning brief, click on the here that talks about their letter, that explains everything about the bill that is a very troublesome bill for almost all of the schools around here. I mean, it's pretty much all of the public schools in the state of Indiana. Indiana will find their funding remarkably docked. So please, look at that. And then, I found out today that one legislator changed his vote because he had 12 constituents write to them. That's 12, a dozen people. So don't think that you can't make a difference. You can. If they see enough, interest, and then I'm going to propose that the board gets a letter out for our parents that they can also understand the necessity and get some letters going. But it's super important. It's really timely. So that's all I have, but go Lions.
And one more thing, Julie, you posted something about the ROTC on our page, right? Did somebody, how did our ROTC do?
Oh, they went to that conversation.
Yeah,
And they were, in Georgia,
right,
and out of 28, they came in 6.
yes, okay, and
For
they
the
had,
first time, that's a really.
yes, and they had a great experience, right? Yeah, all right, good,
It's
good,
like there's high on the road bridge.
yeah,
I just, like there's high on the road bridge.
oh,
Yeah,
well, but still, that's phenomenal.
6 out of 28.
6 out of 20 is awesome, good, good.
Yeah, and that, I think, was a national competition
Yes,
too.
Yes,
So
yes.
it was.
A very, large group of, students to choose from.
Yeah, and I think Chris
They're
is,
every day after school, running, working out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, they're so cool,
They
that was
They have
awesome.
a competition coming up, not too soon, right now.
Oh, good,
Because you approved 2 trips.
yes, good,
The
I'm
other
excited to hear about that, okay,
Either late March or early April.
good, okay.
I have a couple comments. I'd like to give a shout out to Mindy for reaching out to an Eastwood family last week or early this week and stuff like that. I think things are going to work out just fine. Thank you so much. And also another shout out to Pam Melcher and the kitchens or the cafeteria staff. Had a great lunch at the Elkhart West yesterday, and my company was even more so that I enjoyed it with. And also, I think we forgot this last week or 2 weeks ago, but anyhow, please remember Tony England. You know, he's still, working through things and stuff like that. But the other interesting thing was that, and Carrie brought this up, the vaccine, the mRNA or something like that, whichever one it's called, Moderna makes it. Anyhow, that thing is actually a ladder that will do all kinds of things. Up until the point, and this affects Tony, they're working on technology right now with that stuff. If you have a heart attack, they shoot it into your heart. It takes a while and stuff like that, but it actually will regrow blood vessels that are blocked in your heart. That's huge. So,
The vaccine?
not
No.
the
Technology.
technology behind it is kind of like a ladder that you can do a lot of things with. And maybe that's a bad analogy, but thank you very much. Look forward to seeing everybody 2 weeks from now.
Okay, anybody else in the room? Daisy?
I just wanted to add about the sports. I just think it's great that a lot of people were hesitant about the merger. They didn't always see the benefits to the students, but we can already see some of the benefits in athletics, how well our athletics are doing, how well the community has come out to support the kids in the sports and the different coaches. So I think this is a great outcome, and the schools are not like it's just a great outcome, and there's more great outcomes to come. So I just think it's something we need to celebrate, how the community came together and how much the kids are benefiting from having one high school.
And one more thing, not just athletics, our music department too has had great success. So, and is about to with band competitions. So athletics, music, arts, we're moving.
All right, very good.
Roar, hear me roar.
Meeting adjourned.
I roar.